Hello everyone, welcome back to the next part of the Eternal Set review for Defiance. We are on to the third and final part of the Justice cards, so let's get going. Okay, first off we have Loyal Falcon. It's a 4-cost 2/4 flying endurance with pledge. Clearly not a constructed statted card, but a pretty great limited 4-drop all in all. Between pledge just being a flyer and being an offense-defense flyer. It's not quite the 6-drop owl, but it's a pretty good smaller cousin, I would say. Next we have Pistol Whip, a 4-cost spell, not a fast spell, which definitely makes the card a lot worse. You give one of your units +2/+2 this turn and stun an enemy unit, so it's a very expensive card for the effect that it has. Effectively, you get the effect that you could get for 0 power. Like we had a card that cost 0 and stuns an enemy unit. So you're basically paying 4 for the fact that it gives +2/+2 and the stun in one card and the +2/+2. So that's a very bad deal. I guess this is meant as sort of like a way to to trigger Renown in limited, and it's probably okay for that, but okay is about all it is, I would say. It's not very good, and in constructed it's obviously unplayable. Next we have Broken Wing Brawler, another great limited card basically. It's a 5-cost 3/4 with pledge, and on Empower it gets flying and Warcry this turn. Let's say it's not great, it's solid. Since you still need the Empower. Without the Empower the card's pretty bad. With the Empower, however, the card is pretty good. So that's why it's pretty solid, because it is either an amazing card when you have the power, and on the turns you don't have the power, it's like pretty so-so. Also, it's a bit held back by the fact that it is only an offensive flyer, not a defensive one. But it's still a pretty solid 5-drop, all in all. Next we have Rallying Banner. A Relic, 5-cost. Once per turn you may pay 2 to give one of your units +1/+1 this turn for each of your units. This is basically a late game stall breaker in limited, and that's all that this card really does. Since it is pretty expensive and clunky, but it can also do some really powerful things in stalled out games, or like used on a flyer to finish in the air. Then we have Warband Scold. It's a 5-cost 3/4, just like the other guy we looked at, and he has Warcry for each of your units. So no flying here, but yeah, massive Warcries. The problem is it's a 3/4 for 5, so you're gonna have to do some work that it doesn't die on the first attack. But even on the first attack you're already getting like a pretty good deal usually. This is comparable to the 6-drop Mentor Owl from Omens of the Past, I think it was, that gave its stats to the top unit of your deck, and this is sort of better, but it's not a flyer, but it is cheaper, so it's like in a similar power level, I would say. And if this can attack more than once, then the top deck monsters should help you put away with the game. Next we have Zoltar Foil. This card's kind of nice, but unfortunately a bit so-so in constructed. Like 5-cost unit weapons are pretty expensive, and +3/+4 is not super impressive. When the wielder dies, you play a 2/2 exile with Aegis and Endurance for each weapon it was wielding, but how many weapons can you realistically expect to be on a unit? So usually this will be one of these guys. And on summon you get to silence an enemy unit. So all in all, not bad, but probably a bit too situational, narrow and clunky in constructed to realistically make it even in, say, Renown heavy decks, but that's like the main place that I even could see it be a consideration. And in limited, it's a very good legendary to have in your deck. Next we have Crownwatch Captain, another limited bomb, 6-cost 5/5 Aegis that also buffs all your green guys. Is amazing. Even in constructed, like just power level and ratio wise, this is pretty solid, but it's just a bit too generic and Yeah, I couldn't imagine a deck that would want this in constructed, but power level wise the card is actually almost at like constructed power level. Aegis is just very good on a fatty like this. Then we have Defender's Bulwark. It's a 6 cost weapon, gives +X+X. On summon, Defender's Bulwark gets +1/+1 for each damage you were dealt last turn. So yeah, not that impressive. The fact that it's a weapon, not a relic weapon, makes it pretty so-so, and then it just kind of makes one of your guys fairly big, potentially, and it's also kind of situational and really bad when you are like not taking any damage. So yeah, pretty terrible card, really. Sorry guys, I'm still a bit tired. Next we have New Order Watchwing, the 6 cost 4/4, and on Renown you play a relic weapon with attack and armor equal to the cost of the spell or weapon you put on this. So first off, a 6 cost 4/4 flyer in limited is already pretty good, and then if you can trigger this Renown with something that is a bit more expensive, this card is insane. Like this seemed like a stone cold limited bomb that I would happily first pick if I see it in a pack. And yeah, not a constructed card. Next we have Oathkeeper's Hammer. It's another weapon for limited. It's a 6 cost +2/+2 and lifesteal. Not too great, but factoring in stuff like Renown and how nice lifesteal can be in races and like in the air and so on. This seems like an okay card to consider at least for limited. Might even be fairly good. Probably not great, but possibly pretty solid. Next we have Reina the Unwavering, the 6 cost 6/7 endurance, with pledge thrown in, kind of a freebie on most cards since it's highly situational but gives you just a bit more flexibility. And yeah, she effectively has hexproof from black in magic terms, so the enemy shadow spells and curses can't be played directly on Reina. So anything that has to target in terms of attachments and spells from the enemy cannot target Reina if it's shadow. Yeah, unfortunately the card doesn't do anything relevant for constructed. There's plenty of removal that isn't shadow that deals with her, and officially Vanquish and now also AV Graft and so on. It's just not even that threatening or impressive. It's just a 6 cost 6/7 with endurance. So yeah, not gonna be relevant in constructed. But in limited, a 6 cost 6/7 endurance is already pretty good, and then we have the pledge and the random shadow immunity is thrown on top. That sometimes matters. Next we have Martyr's Chains, one of the cards we saw as spoilers before the set dropped. Pretty amazing card actually. It's a relic, quadruple justice, so you definitely have to be heavy in justice. It's kind of like the channel the Tempest of Justice. And at the end of your turn, double the attack and health of your units. That's actually the part that's kind of less relevant, because I think this is more of a control card, so this effect will often not do anything. But on Empower, you kill an enemy unit. And in a control deck, suddenly turning all your power drops in the late game into slays is super powerful. I can see this going forward as like a top end in control decks as a 1 or 2 of, or like a market card for the late game, and you just slam this on turn 9, play a power, kill something, and then from there on out you just basically have plenty of ways to deal with opposing threats and don't run the risk anymore of being outdrawn and overwhelmed in the late game where you should be winning. I tried this card a bunch and constructed, and I've been pretty happy with it. It plays out pretty well in a control deck. There's also potential to try and abuse this with like power acceleration and RAM type decks, something like Big Combre or similar, but I'm not sure if that's like what you should spend your time and power on, and there are probably better, more proactive and universally good things that you could be doing. But I don't know, maybe there's something else. And last but not least, we have Savior of the Meek. For 9 power, we have a 7/7 flying lifesteal. On Fate, we get to play a 1/1 Watchman with lifesteal that can't attack. Yeah, pretty bad card. Like constructed, I think this is pretty unplayable. Get this 1/1 that can't even attack, so it's just kind of like a jump blocker basically. And yeah, the rate of 9 power for 7/7 flying lifesteal is not very good, given we have a 6/6 flying lifesteal for 7 that isn't even very good. So yeah, this is pretty terrible in constructed. In limited, 9 is a lot, but if your deck is very late gamey and controlling, then this seems like a great finisher in limited if you can get to the 9 power reliably. Okay, this concludes the review of all Justice cards. As usual, time to look at the top 5 cards for constructed. These are in no particular order. As usual, we have Defiance, AV Graft, Oyan, Groundbreaker, Martyrs Chains, and Seraph's Beacon as my top 5 picks for constructed, with an honorable mention for Adjudicator's Gavel, since it is a great new market option against void dependent strategies. Defiance is just one of the best cards in the set, I think. It's hyper efficient and flexible, really powerful. AV Graft is not that great, but it's very solid and gives Justice another removal option, which makes non-shadow based mid-range and control decks with Justice better at dealing with threats, which is pretty good. Oyan is just a great aggro and mid-range 2-drop that has some potential card advantage attached to him with his Renown. Martyrs Chains, like I said, is the new potential top-end tool for control decks, and Seraph's Beacon is this interesting kind of build around Empower synergy card. Okay, this concludes the whole review of Justice. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We have Primal, Shadow, and all the multi-faction cards still to go, so it'll be a while, but for now I will be off for the holidays with family and stuff, so I'll continue after the holidays when I'm back. As usual, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification icon to not miss out on the rest of the series and other content, if you haven't already. And of course, also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch over there to catch me live streaming and get all the latest updates. One last request, if you want to support the content and keep it going, I would ask you to consider whitelisting eternaltitans.com and YouTube on your ad block to support the content for free with ads. That would be amazing and really would help us a lot. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm your host, Manu-S. This was the Eternal Set review with the last part of the Justice cards for Defiance. And I'll see you next time. Have a nice holidays. Bye.